is measured using 13 indicators. So as time goes on during this season, we are going to demystify and understand what these targets are and what the indicators are and what we need to do after we have known what the targets are and what the indicators are. Let me now turn to the definitions of the two concepts that we have been dealing with, which is sustainable consumption and sustainable production. So on the first one, sustainable consumption is the use of material products, energy and immaterial services in such a way that their use minimizes impact on the environment so that the human needs can be met not only in the present, but also for future generations. Why do we need to worry about future generations? Because our grandfathers, our earlier generations cared about us, and that is why we are living the way we are living. So, sustainable consumption and production is about doing more and better with less. It is also about decoupling economic growth from environmental degradation, which means that we need to grow economically while we still take care of the environment, increase resource efficiency, and promote sustainable lifestyles. Sustainable consumption and production can also contribute substantially to poverty alleviation and transition towards carbon and green economies. So all the issues that I have mentioned in this slide have to do with sustainable consumption. And the key word to take away is sparingly, using resources sparingly as if there is not enough, because there is not enough resources to be wasted by all. Then we move on to sustainable production. And sustainable production is the creation of goods and services using processes and systems that are not non-polluting, conserving of energy, safe and healthful for workers. And I need to say that the conceptual spark of sustainable production lies in valuing longer-term consequences and benefits over short-term profits. At other times, we talk of postponed, delayed gratification. And I think we should delay our gratification almost to the next generations, because that is what it means to value long-term consequences and benefits over the short term. So then that leads me to providing some good examples of how responsible and responsible we can be. So if you take food, in Africa and Kenya, we waste up to 40% of the food that is produced in our countries. And yet, we are food insecure. This is ironical. How can you be food insecure and yet during harvest time there is a lot of food waste? So if you visit farms when people are harvesting food crops, whether it's vegetables, whether it's grains, whether it's cereals, you'll find that there is a lot of waste, whether it's inside the farm or as they are transported to the farmsteads. So as if that is not enough, wherever transportation is happening, you'll find there is a lot of waste in the bulking, in the packaging. So you find if you come from Nyandarua, you'll find that transport vehicles are coming wasting all the vitamins as they climb Kinongi towards Nairobi. That is waste because we need all these nutrients. Unlike when, if we are having containerized trucks, we would even take care of the vitamins that are lost during the transportation of vegetables. Distribution in markets. For those of you who live in Nairobi, if you are blindfolded and you are traveling on Thika Road, nobody needs to tell you that you have reached Githurai, because there you get the false smell of food that is going to waste in Githurai market. So that is what it means that we are harvesting food We are transporting food and we are wasting it during distribution. As if that is not enough, then we move on to the kitchen. And in the kitchen, again, there is a lot of food waste. And I think anybody who has been going to the kitchens can give evidence of how much we are wasting. Then at the eating table, you find people are leaving food in the plate. And this, if you are in Europe, you are likely to get a fine as a result of that. There were two Kenyans in Germany who were fined 52 euros because of leaving food on the table. So it shows how sensitive the Germans are on their food. They were told that money belongs to them, but food does not belong to them. The food it belongs to the public. Then there is an example of water. During extraction, during transportation, during and during use at home, we are witnessing a lot of waste. You can see car wash, liters and liters of water. Somebody is brushing their teeth and the sink is full with water. Then this leakages from the plastic pipes and filling a grass when you are not looking. All these are examples of wasting in the area of water. Electric power. The four pictures, the four images also demonstrate how we are wasting power. This reader has got more than 3 gadgets that are connected to power and they are using power. That is waste. If you look at this computer room, it's on, is left on overnight. That is waste. Nobody is using it. The computers are on, the lights are on, and nobody needs them. This lady is chatting with a friend on the phone. The fridge is open, and she is losing all the cold that is supposed to be retained in the fridge. In farming, you can see this is almost obvious to anybody who has watched the degradation of land. So again, this is very unfortunate that the current generations are doing overcultivation, excessive use of fertilizers, unharvested crops, and all these are leading to a lot of waste in the area of production. Then we go to forest. Forest practices, deforestation, logging, forest fires, chamber system, radius conflicts. You can see an estate planted in the middle of a forest, just like we have Rangata in Gong Forest. All these trees need to be saved. Mining, open pits, water collecting carelessly. All this is human beings behaving badly, compromising the interests of those who will come after us. Manufacturing, you can see you're throwing wastewater into streams. You are wasting all this steam, and the pollution is evident. So those are the two dimensions of irresponsible consumption and production. And I needed to bring this one in the early stages of the series so that as we move on to the targets and the indicators, then we would have have understood the background. So this brings me to the last slide, which is a parting shot. And I'm pleading with you, your relatives, friends, and everybody who cares to listen, to join us in exercising responsible consumption and production, not only to guarantee our own survival, but the survival of future generations that will come. So that brings me to the end of the presentation. And over to you, Tito, as I stop sharing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Commander, for your presentation. I'll now hand over to Muthoni to give us the, yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Tito and Mr. Kamande, for that wonderful introduction to SDG 12. I'm just going to bring up my screen so that I can share a summary of some of the points that Mr. Kamande has shared. But as I'm doing that, if you have any questions for us, please let us know so that we can be able to answer them on the chat. Mr. Kamande is keeping an eye out on the chat to see if there are any questions coming in. So we would appreciate if you have any questions, you can post them in the chat and we can answer them as best as possible. So, Mr. Kamande has done a very lovely summary of the SDG 12, responsible consumption and production. And I just want to highlight the targets for this SDG. Now, SDG 12.3, by 2030, half per capita global food waste at all the retail and consumer levels. Okay, sorry, let me just, at all retail and consumer levels, and reduce food losses along production and supply chains, including post-harvest losses. And I believe you caught that in Mr. Kamande's presentation. Again, SDG, the target 12.4, by 2020, achieve the environmentally sound management of chemicals and all wastes throughout the life cycle in accordance with agreed international frameworks, and significantly reduce their release to air, water, and soil in order to minimize their adverse impacts on human health and environment. Target 12.5, by 2030, substantially reduce waste generation through prevention, reduction, recycling, and reuse. Target 12.6, encourage companies, especially large and transnational companies, to adopt sustainable practices and to integrate sustainability information into their reporting cycle. By 2030, ensure that people everywhere have the relevant information and awareness for sustainable development and lifestyles in harmony with nature. And then target 12.81, which is still part of 12.8, is the extent to which one, global citizenship, education, and education on sustainable development, including climate change education, are mainstreamed in A, national education policies, curricula, teacher education, and student assessment. So, as you can see from this summary, we all have a role to play in the implementation of this particular SDG. And I just want us to reflect on that as we look at, as we go into a group discussion, which we will be having in a short while. So, what I have on the screen, sorry if you give me a minute, is just showing, just to remind you what I said at the beginning of this presentation, is that the demand for already constrained natural resources will reach the need for 3 planets worth of resources by 2050. 3 planets by 2050. As the world's population currently uses about 50% more resources than the Earth can support, consumption patterns must be altered to better preserve the planet and to provide for people. So as you can see, we really have, oh my, I've lost my, there you go. So we have, at every level, we have a responsibility to play. So we're now going to be sending you out into the breakout sessions. And what we're going to be looking at is something that we're going to be discussing in a poll thereafter. The young people and all of us on this call can play various roles when it comes to being able to use the resources that we have more responsibly. So as innovators, youth can drive businesses out of market if they operate without a social conscience. As voters, they can drive governments out of office, and as mobilizers, they can bring awareness to responsible consumption and production patterns. So, we're going to send you into groups. In one group, we're going to discuss the role of youth as innovators and consumers in getting businesses to operate with a social conscience when it comes to responsible production and consumption. Feel free to be as open-minded, as creative as possible in coming up with ways in which youth can act as innovators and consumers to get businesses to operate responsibly around this particular SDG. Then in the second group, we're going to discuss the role of youth as voters in getting government to operate with a social conscience, again when it comes to responsible production and consumption. And in the third group, I'd like us to discuss the role of youth as mobilizers in bringing awareness to responsible and consumption and production patterns. So I hope this is clear, and we can post these questions for the respective groups once we have gone into our breakout sessions. I'm going to request my colleague Laurene to now send us out into the breakout sessions so that we can have a brief 10-minute discussion on this. Laurene, over to you. Laurene, I see some people are still here. Are they not able to join?
I have assigned everyone. Currently, I don't have anyone in the unassigned.
Oh.
I'm not sure.
Mr. Kamande is still here? Please put a broadcast message with the, do you have the assignment with you? Do they know what the assignment in the group is?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Let me just assign this one. This is Patricia.
I think it's important that you put for them their messages in there so that they know they don't waste time in their groups just keeping quiet.
Laurene,
Yes.
are you able to broadcast, or you just have to go to the group speak? I'm trying to copy paste, but it's too long. Maybe I join all the groups and.
I'm actually trying to broadcast the message.
Can you assign me to group A so that I go and broadcast for them, and then I come back to B?
Okay.
The first A.
The first A.
Oh yeah. How can I join now?
Just a minute.
Oh, I've already seen. Okay, it's okay.
Yeah. Oh, you've seen. Okay.
Let me just join.
Laurene, is there an MK Africa? Just make sure. I've just come from one group and no one was saying anything there.
Mm-hmm.
Just make sure everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing. And I think some of the people here probably need to be sent to breakout rooms as well. I see Brian Ombati, Charles Kiroi, Claire Mizire, and Susan Oyeke. Also, who is the host?
I'm trying to figure out. I think it's Patricia, because I'm also not able to send anyone to the group since I'm not the host.
Laurene?
Tito, please make me host. Tito,
Yes, I'm trying to do that.
but I don't think you can. Your co-host. I don't know why Patricia is being the host and she doesn't have a good network.
I think it's also we are supposed to end the groups. Okay, let me just end on my side. His time is up.
Yeah, please make me host.
I think because I can't because I'm also the co-host.
Okay, let's just bring people. I can't reach Patricia for some reason, so I've tried calling her. I hope everyone is back now. Is everybody back? Laurene, is there still anyone in a breakout session?
No, there isn't.
Okay, so welcome back, everybody. I hope you had some interesting discussions in your groups, and I'm glad to see most of you are back. Perhaps we can invite some of you to give us feedback from your group discussions. Would anyone like to do that? You can raise your hand. Okay, Japheth, thank you very much. I see Japheth, I see Emma. So perhaps we can start with Japheth. I saw your hand up first. Perhaps please share with us what came up in your group. And Patricia, maybe you can share the notes from this discussion. And then we can have Abraham's sharing afterwards. So let's start with Japheth. Japheth, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Mrs. Muthoni. And I was in group C where we were discussing on the role of youth in helping in mobilize for SDG 12. And we had a very interesting discussion. We were around 4 or 5. So the first we talked on around 4 or 5 points, and point number 1 was through partnership. We can partner with other environmental organizations so that we see how we can mobilize as a team, something like that. Another one was through motivation. We motivate the youths so that they can see that they're getting something out of this. We mentioned a number of ways to motivate them. For example, giving them a certificate of recognition or of participation. Another one was incentives like stipends, but this one was controversial because we have to agree on the form of stipends that is preferable. Another one was another way we can mobilize was through the campaigns and workshops. This targets the people at the grassroots level in terms of campaigns, because you find that most of the time, many projects fail because people are not involved from the grassroots level. There is just that top-bottom approach, but we need to also embrace the bottom-up approach. Maybe if we can find a way to synchronize the two, it can be good, because policies come from the top, but people at the grassroots don't know. They're just given to implement. So there is miscommunication or misunderstanding arises eventually. And the other 2 points, I think I've slipped my mind. I'll call on Sharon, who was also in the group and agreed to come through for me when I get stuck. Sharon, if you may, please go on.
Sharon, please come to Japheth's rescue. Sharon, are you able to unmute your microphone? Sharon, are you there? Japheth, it looks like Sharon has, she has.
No, hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Sharon.
Sorry, I was not able to unmute myself. I think I needed the host to unmute me. Yeah, so what Japheth didn't mention, we also mentioned that we need to incorporate innovative volunteerism. That is where youth now can be brought into volunteering and actually carrying out these sensitization campaigns that he had actually mentioned initially. And yeah, I think that's all. Besides the incentives, for instance, in universities, you can have the Green Week, the Green Week where people come up with different ideas and then they're awarded, or even in the community. For instance, if you partner with the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, at the end of the year or at the end of maybe biannually, they can be giving awards to sustainable companies. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sharon and Japheth. Those are some interesting points. And I'm assuming, sorry, I missed the start. This is the role as mobilizers. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Sharon,
Yes, we can.
Yes, so Japheth and Sharon, I'm assuming that we're speaking about you in your youth as taking on the role of mobilizers. Maybe somebody, yes. Okay, thank you, Japheth. Thank you for clarifying that. So those are some interesting points that have come through. Mr. Commander, do you need me to go through? I see Patricia has also shared with us the key points, so I won't repeat them. And you can summarize them after we've given the other groups a chance to speak, isn't it?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great. I think the second person was Emma. Emma, are you ready to share your group's findings now?
Yes, I'm very ready.
Thank you, Emma. And as you're preparing, Patricia, please take note that Japheth and Sharon were in Group C, not Group A. Emma, over to you. Start by letting us
Thank you.
know which group you were in.
I was in Group B, where we were discussing about the role of youth as voters in getting government to operate with a social conscious. Yeah, so the point that we had is that as youth, when we are voting, we should not only look at the leaders because in terms of where they're coming from or because of they're famous. We should look at their manifesto and look at if whether they are advocating for things like climate change and taking climate action together with just advocating for the sustainable development goals. Because at the end of the day, we live in a planet with finite resources. So if we choose leaders who are not for the sustainable development goals, we aren't going anywhere. Yes, and our future generations will get to suffer. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. So you had that one point of, and a very important point, to look at your leaders' manifesto and not just based on their popularity or the region where they come from when voting. That's a good point. Were you alone in the group, or is there anyone else who's going to support you? Emma? Or have you put it in the chat? Okay. Emma, I can't get you, so I see another hand has come up for Linda. I'm not sure if you were part of Emma's group, but perhaps we can give Abrahams a chance to speak because his hand was up, and then we can come back to you, Linda. Thank you, Emma. Thank you for clarifying that that was the main point. Okay, so Abrahams, are you able to share? Is your microphone unmuted?
Yes. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Abrahams.
We were in group B with Carol, and we were looking at the role of youth.
Sorry, Abrahams, B or D?
Yes. B.
The same one as Emma?
No.
Muthoni, just to clarify, we had two groups A, two group Bs, and two group Cs.
Okay, got that. Thank you. Sorry, Abrahams. Please proceed.
It's okay. So we were looking at the role of youths as voters, and we were with Carol. So the first point, we thought that as youths, we need to take our civil rights to turn up and vote, because we have numbers and the proper numbers. We have an opportunity to bring in the right leaders. And secondly, finding leaders who will take our innovations seriously. Because as young people, we come up with innovations, but they're never taken seriously. They have learned to some serious means. And as youths working together, we take responsibility to educate other youths on finding the right leaders with the proper leadership attributes. And finally, seeking accountability from the leaders who want to elect or who is already elected. And now we can look at the scope and how they form. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abraham. Sounds like you had some really great points. I only got a few of them. I think I see the same coming through, the same comment coming from Patricia, who is taking our notes. I don't know if Mr. Kamande also got any of, I got some of them. Taking up civil rights to vote, educating other youth on their civil rights, and then finding the right leaders and accountability. If I've missed anything on, please put it in the chat, because you had some very good points, and we don't want to miss out on any of them. But your sound is not very clear. Thank you. Okay, and then we had Linda. Linda, your hand is up. Do you mind unmuting your microphone and just letting us know which group you are from and what area you are looking at?
Hi, my name is Linda. I'm from Group A. We were on the role of the youth as innovators and consumers in getting companies to get a social conscience. So I wanted to discuss it in the point of innovators and consumers separately. So as innovators, most of us are coming up with companies related to the SDGs. I think it would be better if we set a standard on, as a term in our companies, first of all, as an example, set a standard on on responsible consumption and production. And then also most of the innovators are being recruited into these companies. And so it should be a PowerPoint in negotiations, either for contracts or yes, in being hired, getting these companies to understand that you are aligned with such things. And then as consumers, I think these companies should be called out when they are going wrong. And if they are not willing to change, it could lead to the extent of even boycotting, because there's influence of people in getting a product or buying a product. So if we are boycotting a certain product, the company would see it as a problem and they would create change. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. Those are also some very, very good points. I think I got the most of them. And just looking at Patricia's notes on the screen, I would agree. I really especially like your point of having SDG 12 as a negotiation point when hiring employees for innovators companies. I think that is very, very good. And I think also you've called on the power of youth as to boycott irresponsible companies' products. So that's very good. I see all those have been put up on the screen, so I won't repeat them because we have a topic discussant coming up. I'm going to hand over to Tito. I see your hand is up. Would you like to share something?
Yeah, I was also part of a group A. We had two groups, so I was part of another group A, and I will also want to share something, just 1 minute, because I can see some have not been discussed on the role of the youths. So one of our members said that youths are part of protecting tomorrow, and one of these is in terms of food security. And as youths, we have the strengths, we have the ability to be part of to do the work as youths, and maybe to do like manual, go to the chambers and produce the food that we need in our lives. And also we can utilize the knowledge as youths, to utilize the knowledge that we have in bringing up innovative ideas. And also we can empower ourselves as youths. Maybe if someone has maybe a good innovative idea, we can empower each other in supporting the idea that he or she has. That is it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tito. Those are also some very good points. I'm going to hand over to Mr. Kamande to be who is our topic discussant, so that I don't take so much time. Mr. Kamande, we have some excellent points that have been shared by the young people who are in various groups. Perhaps you can be able to just give us your summary of these points. And I see a point that has come in from Japheth as Mr. Kamande comes up. And Japheth is saying that a point we forgot to mention but discussed was the use of social media as a tool for mobilization. For example, Twitter to push for a petition to the government. For instance, decolonize social campaign that helped in delaying the coal industry operations in Lamu and Kitui counties. I was wondering why no one was bringing that up. So, Japheth, thank you very much. I think the social media is a very powerful tool for youth to use in their various roles, especially as mobilizers and also in being as innovators and consumers in pushing companies to do the right thing. So thank you for bringing that up. Mr. Kamande, please come up with your summary if you may.
Yeah, thank you, Muthoni. I only have 3 points because, as you can see, we have the groups having been summarized on the screen. The first one is to congratulate the groups because the groups have done very well. And we at MKI Africa are happy that we are relating with the people whom we can move on together. Having said that, let me observe that most of the points that have been laced and as projected on the wall fall into different SDGs. For example, if you take Japheth's presentation, he talked about partnerships, mobilization. And you remember in SDG 17, I talked about global partnership for mobilizing the resources. So it shows that it's possible to map the points that have been brought up by the participants to, to the SDGs map. The beauty about doing that is that you be in sync. You will be synchronized with the agenda at the county levels, county government level, national level, and the international levels. So if you pick the second group, Emma talked of the voting and ensuring that you select leaders who are sympathetic to sustainable development, including climate change. That has everything to do with SDG 13, which is climate action. And we are all expected to do something about climate action. So when Abraham talks about civil rights and youth accountability, he's making reference to SDG 16, which is peace, justice, and strong institutions. And when young people and everyone else is exercising their civil rights of voting, you are actually doing and fulfilling the expectations of SDG 16. So this is a demonstration that actually whatever we discussed is in line with the cause of SDGs. So you go on to listening to Rita, you'll find she's making reference to uh, good business, ethical business practices, and those are contained in SDG 8, where we are promoting economic growth and decent work. All that demonstrates the understanding of the group of the import of having to satisfy or move towards the tenets of SDGs. So I needed to say that. And then that is the linkage between the discussion and SDGs. The other beautiful thing about the group work is that they are able to relate at the practical level on what the import of the targets and the goals are, so that we are able to mobilize. For example, when we talk of mobilizing the grassroots, it shows appreciation that we need everybody. At one point, I talked of the poor and the vulnerable. And the moment you accommodate them, then you start unleashing their potentials and making them productive members of the society. So those are the points I would have I would make at this point as we end the the webinar. So back to you, Muthoni.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kamande, for summarizing our discussion very well. And for those of you who are interested in a more in-depth discussion on this, we will be posting a report on this on this particular webinar, including our summary of the discussions on our website as a white paper, which you can be able to use for further research in the coming weeks. I now want to invite all of you to poll. We have had discussions around various roles which we could be taking up. The first role we looked at is as innovators and consumers, and the second role we looked at is as voters, and the third role is as mobilizers. So, as people, because I know we are a mixed group, both young and old, who are concerned about responsible production and consumption patterns based on the various discussions we've had today, I invite you to answer this question. Which of the three roles do you play most actively? Just looking at yourself as an individual. Are you more inclined to being an innovator and consumer who is going to push companies to do the right thing? Are you more inclined to be somebody who exercises their right to vote to make sure government is being responsible? Or are you more inclined to be a mobilizer who works with other young people to ensure responsible and production patterns? So I hope you can see the poll coming up on your screen. Mr. Kamande, confirm to me that the poll is coming up. It can be seen and people can be able to
Oh
vote.
yeah, it's up there. It's up there, and people are voting.
Okay, great. So I'm going to give a minute or two for all of us to cast our vote. Just looking at those three roles, which one do you think you play the most actively when it comes to being able to push for responsibility around SDG 12. I don't see a single vote, Mr. Kamande. Are you seeing them on your side?
I am, and if you allow, I could lead for you. Innovators and consumers, 53%, with an outturn of 8 of them. Then for voters, 3 of them have voted in favor of voters, 20%, while the mobilizers, 4 of them have voted for mobilizing, with the percentage being 27%.
Are there still other votes coming in?
Oh yeah. I can see innovators have moved up to 59.
Okay, so we can give it a few more. We can give it another minute, so that.
But in terms of the total pooling, we have 10 plus 3 plus 4, that is 17. So we still have a number who have not voted.
We have a small number.
But a small number.
So is there any activity? Can I end the poll now?
I think there is no activity. You can end the poll at that point.
Okay. So, Mr. Kamande, please read out the results for me.
So for innovators and consumers, we have 10 participants voting in favor, and that comes to 59%. While for voters, 3 of them have voted, that translates to 18%, while 4 have voted for mobilizing, which is translating to 24%.
Okay. So if we were to interpret these results, Mr. Kamande.
Yes.
And I just want to bring up my screen. So if we were to interpret these results, would say that majority of the young people in this discussion, or majority of us in this having this discussion, feel that they can drive businesses out of them. They play a bigger role as innovators and consumers in driving businesses out of the market if they operate without a social conscience.
Yeah.
And then this is followed by the role of mobilizers who can bring awareness to responsible consumption and production patterns. And finally, driving government out of office.
That's correct.
Is there anything you'd like to comment on that? I'm curious, and maybe that's a discussion for another day, as to why young people don't feel that their vote can count, or maybe they just feel they're stronger as consumers. That would be an interesting discussion.
It should. We should do some research and analyze.
We can follow up this discussion with an analysis of these results, but I would like to thank you all for taking the time to actually take this vote. And we are coming to the tail end of today's discussion. And I would like to take this opportunity for those of you who may not have heard about the My Little Big Thing SDGs Innovation Challenge to speak a little bit about this year's challenge, 2021, where this is actually our 5th anniversary. We are celebrating 5 years of innovation and entrepreneurship, particularly with undergraduate university students from across Africa. And this year's and what we tend to do in all our 5 competitions that we have been running for the last 5 years is to welcome undergraduate university students, such as those who may be here, or your colleagues and friends, to submit ideas and that they may have around particular SDGs innovations. So this year, our focus is on the green agenda, which is why we are having this webinar series. The green agenda being SDG 12, 13, 14, and 15. And so for the next few weeks, we are going to be having every Tuesday on a day like today, we're going to be having a webinar to deep dive into those particular SDGs, SDG 12, 13, 14, and 15. Once we have done that, this is an introduction. For this year's challenge, we would like to introduce to you a little difference in the way we have done our competition from previous years. Would like to welcome you to participate in a training program that we are going to be running on our learning platform, learning.mylittlebigthing.com, as well as through live sessions such as this ones, as soon as we finish the webinar series on the green agenda. So this is a sustainability and design thinking training course that takes 4 weeks that will help you, if you are planning to participate in this year's challenge, to understand how we are going to be judging this year's competition and to help you prepare your idea to be able to be presented to the judges. This is an important competition, and if you're, an important training course, and if you're really interested in participating in this year's challenge, then I would encourage you to register for this training session, which will be up for registration from next week. Why should you participate in this year's challenge? Because it's very exciting, as we have always had in the past. You stand a chance to win 100,000 shillings prize money if you have the top prize, and 75,000 shillings if your idea is first runners up, and 50,000 shillings if your idea is third runners up. This is in addition, of course, to a scholarship from Cambridge University on sustainability essentials for business, which you will get to attend as part of your prize, and a year's worth of mentorship, and not to mention support during the mentorship for those 12 months, so that you can be able to bring your project to life. We hope that's exciting for you, so that you can be able to want to participate in our challenge this year. But as I mentioned, the first step is for you to register in the training program, which we're going to be launching next week. For you to be able to register, it's sustainability design thinking. It's being offered on learning.mylittlebigthing.com. So if you haven't registered on our platform, I welcome you to do that in the course of the next few weeks, and also welcome you to join us in next week's webinar, where we'll be looking at SDG 13 on climate action. There's a feedback form that is being shared in the chat. Please give us your feedback to today's session so that we can improve on it. And if you have any questions and comments before we wind up, please share that with us, even as I continue to invite you to join us in next week's session. And if you have any questions, the feedback form has been put on the chat, and I'm going to give you a few minutes to answer it. Even as I read through some of the comments. Japheth, elections get rigged, and so it's frustrating, which is, I guess, why young people don't feel they have power as voters. Now, that's a very interesting discussion topic, which I'd love to get into, perhaps not in today's forum, but it is really interesting to see some of the comments coming in. Somebody else whose name doesn't appear says that it's unfortunate that youth do not vote, hence missing out on the most effective method. I tend to agree. I think it's important that you exercise your right to vote, so long as you are capable of doing that as a citizen of any country. And that's a discussion I'd love to have in future sessions. So please take some time to answer the feedback session. To fill in the feedback form that has been filled in the chat. And if you have any further comments, let us know. And mine is to just say thank you for joining us on this inaugural webinar that we've had for this year, as we look forward to having you join us in next week's session, and even more importantly, for you to join our training program, which we're going to be launching next week. Asanteni sana, thank you, merci, for those of you who are French speaking. Thank you very much, and have a good night, everyone. Good night.